All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, June 14th edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin, and I'm joined by AJ Schullo today on Monday afternoon. AJ, I appreciate it, man, coming in on short notice. Marcel couldn't make it today, but I know he sends his best regards. So I appreciate it, man. Have a good time today. We'll talk about UFC 263, Bellator 260, and PFL 4. Before we get into it, AJ, how's everything with you, man?
Good. Happy to keep Marcel's seat warm this week. I'll still be curious to hear what he thinks about this card. Maybe he posted on Twitter. But yeah, me and you going to be chopping it up. Bellator, PFL, like we talked about last week. I mean, it was a big, busy week for MMA. And yeah, excited to recap it with you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm curious to hear what Marcel thought too, but it's all good. I'm curious to hear what you think too, AJ. So yeah, let's get into it, guys. We'll start with UFC 263, and then we'll do Bellator and PFL. So yeah, I mean, overall, AJ, it was a pretty crazy card, man. A lot of stuff, a lot of fights that, people didn't see coming. I'll get Chris's comment. Chris London, what's up, man? Glad for you to be in the chat, buddy. Yeah, AJ, a lot of upsets on this card, man. I know that you had a couple, you picked a couple upsets. I did too. A couple correct, a couple not so correct. Overall, slightly profitable night for myself. So, same with you, AJ. I saw that as well. But overall, I mean, it was a pretty crazy night of fights, man. I'm not sure you didn't pick. I think I was 7-7. It wasn't great. Slightly profitable in bets though, so I'm happy. But do you know how you did in your picks? Like, I can't remember. It wasn't the greatest night for either of us, I don't think.
I think I went betted about 500, just like yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it is what it is. But again, AJ, anytime you come out with a slight profit, you're happy with it, right? So let's start with the main event here. This is a fight where I thought it was going to be really competitive. That's kind of why I took the plus money with Vettori, and I was wrong. Obviously, Adesanya showed, a lot of, I think, improvements on the ground, AJ, especially in that one. I think it was the third round where Marvin got his back, and then he turned around so quick, was on top of him. That was pretty impressive. And obviously, we knew the striking would be his advantage. We already knew that. We were kind of banking on him getting the fight to the ground, Vettori, and he wasn't able to do it consistently. I think he got one or two takedowns maybe during the fight, but I thought Adesanya looked good, man. And I thought he looked incredible, and it's not like I was doubting him. I just thought that Vettori had a path, and that's why I thought he had a chance here. But yeah, I thought Adesanya looked really good. AJ, what do you think about the fight, man?
Yeah, I took the plus money with Vettori as well. Whatever, lesson learned. Just took a 1-unit shot. But yeah, I think the lesson that I'm taking away with this is, Jan, the physicality, I think, really played a factor with those takedowns. Not that Marvin's a downright bad wrestler, but I think that Jan definitely had more success with the double legs in open space. So should Israel move up again against another big physical wrestler, I would have my concerns about him getting taken down and maybe stalled out on his back. But yeah, I mean, I think the improvements were noteworthy. That's why he's the champ after all. Champions make adjustments. And yeah, even though Marvin lost here, he's still a top 5 middleweight. Stock doesn't go down, in my opinion. I'm not going to overreact to it.
Yeah, Marvin's calling out Paul Acosta, and I think that fight makes sense. They both just lost to Israel, so I would do that fight. For Israel, Dana White's saying Robert Whittaker makes sense as the rematch, and obviously Robert's won 3 straight fights. That fight makes a lot of sense to AJ. So I think they'll do that fight, but if Israel wins that fight, it's like, I know there's a couple other guys like Jared Cannonier and Jack Hermanson who he hasn't fought yet, but still, are we buying any of these guys as legitimate challengers at 185? I'm not sure. So I still think there's a chance he could go back up to 205 at some point. Probably not anytime soon, but I think maybe in a year or two, because Jan is 38, so eventually he's going to become 40 years old. He's probably going to slow down at some point. Right now he's on point, but a couple years, Jan might not be the same guy. Maybe that'd be a good time for Israel to go up. And who knows? Maybe Glover Teixeira pulls off the upset, and then you have a new champion. The UFC wants to get him a second belt. They love the guy, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I thought he looked good in this fight. So let's go to the co-main event here, AJ. I think this was the fight that everyone was talking about. And man, I cashed my bet in this one, AJ, on the under, because I figured there'd be a finish this time. These guys, that first fight, I still have no idea how it went the distance. Just watching that one back, AJ, as you saw it too, throwing the kitchen sink at each other. And this time around, the weight cut really, really affected Figueiredo, it seemed like. And he came out with a statement today saying that he knew it was going to be a bad night for him because he had a tough weight cut and he just thought it wasn't going to be his night. And Moreno was dominating this fight. Gets the finish in the third round, AJ. You got to feel good for this guy. He's one of the few guys who have been released by the UFC, came back and won a belt. And I was going through the list yesterday. I only saw him, Fabricio Verdun, and Robbie Lawler. Those are the only guys that I saw. Maybe there's someone else that was caught, came back a few years later, but I think those are the only guys. And all three of them obviously were big underdogs to win the belt. So yeah, AJ, I mean, an unbelievable performance by Brandon Moreno, man. Give me your thoughts on this fight, man.
Yeah, he didn't really let him breathe from the opening bell. I mean, he just put it on Figueiredo. I thought Figueiredo was going to be the guy that took the center of the octagon like he did last time. There's a guy with more punching power, but Figueiredo came out with like this different stance. Like something seems kind of off with him. Like it just seemed like, but also credit to Moreno. Again, I'm not trying to say like just because I thought Figueiredo maybe looked a little different that Moreno didn't look great. He looked spectacular. I mean, he just put it on him from the opening bell, pressured him. He took him down. And like, man, when he took his back, it was just so slick. Like he just like went in there. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. And it's just like the draw the first time you could tell just really fired him up. And yeah, nobody should ever count anybody out in theory. Like when, you're the 16 seed on Tough, you lose in the first round. And like you said, you get cut. But then the guy comes out there and beats the champ. He beats Figueiredo, who a lot of people love. And I think Figueiredo's a good fighter, but just goes to show you just can't count these guys out. They persevere. Yeah,
for sure. He didn't look the same, obviously. He just couldn't pull the trigger. And this is not the same guy we saw against Benavidez or even against the guy, Alex Perez, or even the first Moreno fight. He just couldn't get it done. And, he's calling for a trilogy fight now. He wants that third fight, but I'm not sure, guys. I don't even know if he can really make 125 again. Like, it seemed like this might have been the last time. He's 33 years old, AJ. And we know as you get older, the weight cut gets harder. I still think that he's going to go up to 135 at some point, guys, because I feel like it'll be hard for him to make weight. And even if he does, it looks like he's killing himself to do it. And you saw how flat he looked. But again, you don't want to take anything away from Moreno. I mean, the guy clearly proved he's the best flyweight in the world. He looked incredible. Now the question is, what's next for him? So Askarov, right? That's the guy that I think a lot of us want to see him because they did fight and it was a draw. Just another draw, right? It was a super close fight. Split draw. It was super, super close. For what I'm hearing, Askarov has a fight booked, and I heard it was against Alex Perez at the end of July. This is not announced yet, but that's what I'm hearing. So I don't know if it's going to be Perez or someone else, but I am hearing he has a fight at the end of July, and I would assume that'd be a number one contender fight if he did fight Perez. Perez has never fought Moreno before, and obviously Askarov had the draw. The thing is, I mean, there's a lot of guys that Moreno's already beaten in this division, guys. Like, he's already beat Cara France. He's already fought Pantoja. I think he lost to him, if I'm not mistaken. So that could be a rematch they do, but he'll probably end up getting a rematch at some point. So we'll see what happens there, man. Actually, Pantoja has 2 wins. He has a win on Tough and in the UFC over the champ. So that's a fight that could happen, him coming off the win over Kate. But I'm thinking it's going to be the win of Askarov and Perez if that's the fight. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. You mentioned those 2 matchups, Pantoja, Royval, and then Askarov, Perez. I think whoever's going to put on a more impressive performance will probably get Moreno. Put a stamp on it. We'll talk about Bellator, but like we had a similar thing with like Jason Jackson there, I think, for welterweight. But yeah, I think it's hard for me to definitively say right now who gets Moreno next, but I think those 2 matchups are going to draw some clarity.
Yeah, let me get these comments here. Chris said he was on fire till coming, but he looked flat. Yeah, that was a tough one for you. I didn't really see it coming either. Stylebender has been way more active than Khabib ever was. Yeah, I mean, he's 21-1 now. It's pretty impressive. And you're right, Jose. He fights like 3-4 times a year. He reminds me of John Jones when John was coming up as lightweight champ. I remember in 2011, he fought 4 times that year. He won the belt from Shogun. He fought who else did he fight that year? Rampage, Machida, and Ryan Bader too in that same year. So I feel like Adesanya is a guy that wants to stay active. He says he wants to fight again soon. So hopefully they can get that Whitaker fight done too. Let's get Cole's question. Hey Cole, what's up, man? I had 7 or 8 of my buddies over to watch the card. All I talked about was Diaz nearly winning. He became a bigger star or loss in his opinion. We'll talk about that right now, actually, after I get this last comment from Jose, who says Conor gets whatever rematch he wants, but Diaz can't get a rematch with Jorge. Dana White privilege as finest. Tony Ferguson's in the comments. So I'm just kidding. Yeah, let's talk about that fight, AJ, because I know you had a big bet on Leon. My God, that 3rd round. So yeah, I mean, here's the thing. So yeah, people are talking. I know what you're saying, Cole. Casual fans are talking about Diaz almost coming back, but come on. I mean, he was losing the whole fight. Like, Leon Edwards was absolutely dominating his fight. He won clearly the first 4 rounds. He was winning the 5th round, and he got caught with a Stockton slap followed by a straight left. I've never seen that combination before, AJ. And AJ, I know you had a big bet on Leon. So what were you feeling in that moment, man? Were you shitting your pants?
Oh yeah, it was crazy. I mean, like Diaz, man, you can never count him out. I wasn't. It was looking like my read was on the fight was correct for the first 22 minutes or so. Leon was dominating the clinch. He was dominating the wrestling. He was winning the striking exchanges, and then Diaz just hits him. And that's something that I'll note with Leon going forward. One thing that I like to do with betting or just looking at fighters' results in general is I want to not just learn from losses, but learn from wins. This wasn't the first time we saw Leon Edwards hurt. We actually saw him rocked badly by Brian Barberena.
He got dropped in that fight. He got dropped. Yep.
Yeah, I know you remember back in 2017. And so if Leon fights a guy, I mean, Diaz is a capable boxer. I wouldn't say he's got big one-hitter quitter power. So even a guy like Colby Covington, if he gets matched up with Edwards, even Jorge Masvidal, I mean, this is something that Edwards is a great talent, but, we could see that he could be hurt. So great effort by Diaz. The guy's always as game as they come. You can never count him out with his cardio, his toughness, his skill as well. But yeah, it definitely had me sweating there for the past like 2.5 minutes. But yeah, I mean, this is in my opinion, I know we just talked about the previous 2 fights, but Figueiredo, Adesanya, and Diaz have so much draw. Obviously, Conor's like the number 1 guy, but then like those 3 guys are right there. Everybody loves these guys. So the fact that the 3 of them are on the same card, tremendous pay-per-view, honestly, from the draw perspective.
I agree. What's crazy? I'm looking at the stats right now. Leon only outstruck him by 1 significant strike in the whole fight. It didn't seem like that to me. I mean, sometimes these stats, they don't seem to tell the whole story of the fight. That's why you have to watch the fights, right, AJ? You can't just go by the numbers, because you look at these stats, you think this was a close fight, but it really wasn't. And like you said, I thought Leon, you mixed it up well, right? The takedowns were smart too. Terlansky says Leon's stock was down in a win crazy. Yeah. I mean, I feel like he wasn't going to tell shot anyways, because Dana White already said that Colby was. But I think if he had finished Nate, maybe he could have made that argument. Now, though, I feel like it was a good win, AJ. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't mind him getting the rematch with Usman. People forget that he's already fought Usman, but he has. He lost. But I still feel like they're going to go with Colby next, because Dana White was in love with that first fight. He's always talking about it. I wouldn't mind doing Leon and Masvidal, though. And I know Dana White talked about it. I think it'd be a good fight, AJ. And there's a lot of beef there between these 2 guys. And, Masvidal, I know he's coming off the 2 losses to Usman, but again, the UFC is all about business, selling pay-per-views and big fights, and there's no one really a bigger star than Masvidal. So I think that fight makes sense to you. What are you thinking, AJ?
I love it. Yeah, you read my mind before we got on air. I actually put out a tweet saying that Masvidal and Edwards should fight. I think it makes a ton of sense, to be honest with you. So yeah, I'm all for it.
There you go, AJ. So there you go. And I know Dana White even mentioned at the press conference. So Jose says it could have been worse. Imagine Leon had been KO'd by a title run. Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. Look at the margin of error in the sport, eh? Like, this guy's, he hasn't lost in 4 or 5 years now. He's on 10-fight unbeaten streak, but 1 punch almost ended that whole run. Crazy, right? The sport's nuts, guys. With the 4-ounce gloves, anything can happen. Jose, who do you think Wonderboy goes with extra pressure maybe to do something big against Burns? That's the other guy we didn't talk about. That fight too. They could always do like the winner of Wonderboy and Burns against Leon too. And the winner of that fight could get a title shot. I mean, Wonderboy's never fought Usman. That's a new fight, right? We've already seen him fight Covington. He's already not Covington out. We already saw him beat Leon with the wrestling. So that's a new fight. We'll see. This next fight here, AJ, I feel like it went like a lot of us expected with Bilal Muhammad outpointing Damian Maia. First round, Maia looked decent. Like he had the gas tank in the first, but after that, just spamming takedown attempts, missing them like crazy. AJ loses 29-28 here. 1 for 21 in the takedowns, AJ. So just wasn't very effective with the wrestling. Bilal Muhammad outstruck him pretty much every round. I guess I would give the first round to Maia just because Bilal didn't do anything, but it was Bilal's fight, obviously, second and third round. What do you think of the fight?
Yeah, pretty much when it was expected. I thought Maia had to like take him down and submit him or control him in the first 2 rounds to win the fight. And if he was unsuccessful, he's probably going to lose because Bilal's better than him on the feet. Yep. Kudos to Damian Maia. The guy's always a trier. He never gives up in there. Now at 43, I had my concerns about him heading into this fight. I know he's one of these ageless wonders guys, but coming in on a layoff, I read up via research that he opened a jiu-jitsu museum ahead of this fight, which kudos to him, but it just made me question how all in on fighting he was. And so now it seems like this is potentially his last fight from what I saw. I think it was from BJ Penn, actually. Yeah. Maybe you retweeted it, but yeah, kudos to him on a great career. And this is kudos to Bilal Muhammad. This is his biggest win to date, in my humble opinion. Yeah,
so yesterday Dana White said that that's the last fight of his deal, and he thinks that that's probably the last time we'll see Damian Maia in the UFC. But Damian went out on Instagram today and made like an impassioned post saying, like, I still have the fire in me. I want to fight one more time. I don't want it to be anywhere else than in the UFC. And I really want to fight Nate Diaz. It would be an amazing fight for 2 guys that love jiu-jitsu. I have a lot of respect for Nate Diaz. He's super tough. I really want to fight him for the last fight of my career. Man, I wouldn't mind that fight either, though. You know, like, he's begging for him. And Nate versus Maia on the ground would be a lot of fun, guys. That'd be a fun grappling battle if it went to the ground. If it stayed on the feet, I mean, obviously Nate's going to piece him apart. Nate said he wants to fight soon. He's like, I want to turn around 3 or 4 months. So maybe they could do this fight, AJ, retirement fight for Damian, but we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if that's it, though, because, like I said, Dana said that's it. The only other thing I could think of is maybe, like, Donald Cerrone, who's also, like, looking for one of these retirement matches, you know? It sucks, man. The sport, it's such a brutal sport. Like Damian's been in the UFC for 14 years, you know. He's 43 now, guys, but since he was 29 years old, he's been in the UFC. That's crazy. Like, it's his whole life as a grown man, really. He's been in the UFC. So It's incredible. It sucks that it's going to end this way, probably, AJ, but I'd like to see him get one more fight. That's what I'm going to say. Jose said, ask Corrado's most recent Instagram post. Yeah, exactly, Jose. Like I said, I heard it was going to be Alex Perez. I don't know if that's official. I was looking around. I don't think it's official yet, but that's what I was hearing. So keep that in mind. But that's not official by any means. Let's go to the next fight here, AJ. My God. Wow, Paul Craig. I mean, this guy is just I've never seen anyone like this guy on the ground. Like, he's just unbelievable on the ground, guys. Like, almost all his wins are by finish. Now, this was considered a knockout, yet afterwards he gets his BJJ black belt, which I thought he had one before this fight, by the way. I was surprised when he wasn't a black belt. He got his black belt for a knockout because the referee totally fucked this up and basically let Jamal Hill, his arm just linger, and it was just flopping there. We all saw what happened. I mean, I got a lot of thoughts on this because I had Hill in a parlay and I was disappointed, right? But the fight didn't play out like I thought, so I'm not too worried about it because it didn't take place on the feet. It only took place on the ground. Craig pulled guard right away, and Hill was willing to play in his guard. I couldn't believe it, AJ. He tried to move to half guard, and then that was a huge mistake. Craig gets his arm, and you saw what happened. And then the hammer fists that finished him were just absolutely vicious. I knew this was definitely a possibility. This was the risk with betting on Hill here. But it's not like he was like taking down with a double leg or single leg. The guy pulled guard, grabbed his arm, and submitted him. It's just something I didn't see coming. And unbelievable performance by Paul Craig, man. Like, I love watching this guy fight, AJ. He's a lot of fun to watch, man. What'd you think of this fight, man? What a vicious finish.
Yeah, it was so crazy, right? I mean, like, I think a lot of people share that same sentiment backing Hill. They wanted him to keep the fight standing, and he wanted to play around in Craig's guard. And, it's a learning experience for him. One of these guys that undefeated prior to this fight, like, maybe a loss just helps him out. Maybe he gets better from it. Not going to write the guy off because he lost one fight. I think he could improve upon it. But, like, yeah, Paul Craig is one of these guys historically underrated, like the underdog most of the time. And, he went out there, imposed his grappling again. I guess, like, with Craig, he should be not so willing to play guard. That makes me kind of nervous about his game because, like, assuming he doesn't finish the guy off of his back, he's kind of in a bad spot. So, but nonetheless, this pertains to him in this fight. Good performance. Hopefully Jamal Hill heals up soon.
And he took no damage, so I feel like they could turn him around quick, guys. That's what I'm thinking here with Paul Craig. Paul Craig, I should say. That's the way to pronounce it. I'm just looking at the rankings right now. Okay, he's ranked number 14. Jim Cruz injured, I think. Surkinov's number 12. He's suspended for marijuana, which is stupid. Ryan Spann has a fight book. Nikita Krylov's ranked number 9. I mean, that would be an interesting fight, wouldn't it? Nikita Krylov, Paul Craig. I don't think they fought yet, have they? Double check. I would watch that fight, AJ. It'd be fun if it went to the ground, wouldn't it? Even a rematch with Ankalaev, too, who doesn't have a fight booked. I mean, we all knew he was going to lose that fight, but he subbed him. Daniel was at that fight. Yeah, I know, man. I shouldn't bet against this guy. You just know it could happen, right? It's stupid. It's my fault. Mine Sanchez would be perfect both. Yeah, that's the other one you could think about if Dana White brings him back for more fight. Sanchez and Mai, actually. All right, let's go to the prelims here. And my God, what a fight here between Brad Riddell and Drew Dober, AJ. Unbelievable fight. Both guys just went to war. But Riddell proved to be a slightly more well-rounded fighter, it looked like, with the wrestling, which kind of surprising. I thought Dober would have actually the wrestling advantage. So Riddell looked good, man. And I feel like this is a big win for him. It's going to put him in the top 15, AJ. What did you think of Brad Riddell's performance?
Oh, yeah, he looked great. I mean, he got rocked early, and then he hung on. He was unsuccessful with the takedowns in round 1. He only landed 1, but, like, as the fight wore on, he had more success wrestling. And, that showed because we didn't really get to see Brad's wrestling in his previous fights. Just looking at his stats, he landed, like, 1 takedown each. But, like, this was his first fight where he landed multiple and actually, like, tried to wrestle, whereas before we had the other guys try to take him down. So, this was a fight where, like, both guys, like, didn't have to worry about a guy taking him down, at least on paper ahead of time. They didn't have to worry about Islam Makhachev grabbing your leg and, dominating you on the ground. So I think, like, that alone made it for a more friendly fight for both of them, just showcase the stand-up. And, rightfully won fight of the night. It was just truly spectacular from start to finish.
Yeah, I absolutely love the fight. It was an awesome fight. I feel like it was super close. It came down to that last round, obviously, and Riddell pulled it off. So, I mean, this is a big win for him, guys, and we'll look at the rankings quickly for Riddell. So Dober was 13, so he'll take his spot in the rankings. Yeah, I mean, Armin Tarsukian is ranked number 15. I don't think he has a fight booked unless I'm mistaken. That would be a sick fight, Brad Riddell and Tarsukian. Don't know if they'll do it because they're both kind of prospects, but the other guy would be like, if they want to push Riddell, I mean, Dan Hooker's number 8. Actually, they're training partners, aren't they? Aren't they training partners? Yeah. So that won't happen, is it? Yeah. I think they both aren't they both city kickboxing guys? That's the problem, right, guys? So that's not going to happen. Rafael dos Anjos is out there. I don't know if he'll get that fight. That's a little too high up the rankings. So someone like that in that 10 to 15 range, I think. Gregor Gillespie was a fight he was supposed to have like 2 months ago, and I think he got COVID or something, and the fight got canceled on fight day. Remember that, AJ? They could run that back too. That's the other thing. But I feel like those guys might be on a different paths, and maybe they'll meet for a belt one day. Eric Anders, Darren Stewart, AJ. This was such a weird fight, right? Like we saw the first fight, and this one played out even differently, and the crowd did not like this fight. Even though Anders is the hometown guy, they were just booing him the whole time. The fight was kind of dull to watch, but Anders proved that he was, I guess, the better grappler and basically grinded it out. What'd you think of this fight?
Yeah, I thought Anders made the fight like as hard as he could have possibly made it on himself, and he still managed to win. Clearly, like it's just like, dude, like why don't you actually just change levels and like get on his hips and like tank him down? Because we saw in round 3, once he actually grounded Stewart, he beat the crap out of him. He got a 10-8 round on 2 judges' scorecards. So like, again, this is just somebody who bet Anders in that spot, and
yeah, I didn't touch him.
I acknowledge that rematches don't go exactly how they can the first fight, but the takeaways that I had made me really confident in Anders. But yeah, I mean, I got to give a lot of credit to Stewart. He definitely had a much better showing here than the first fight. He took Anders down. Anders is not an easy guy to take down. But yeah, I mean, the result doesn't really surprise me. Anders, this is the best he's ever looked. I think this is the best form, fight ready. But he still kind of showed the same issues before, a little too timid, clinching for a little bit too long without any purpose, without really going for takedowns that are good. But yeah, it was like you said, going from this fight to the Riddell fight was definitely a positive step in the right direction. We were watching this live.
Yeah, absolutely. The next fight, this was super close. I want to get your thoughts on this one. Lauren Murphy and Joanne Calderwood. Lauren Murphy wins a split decision. I did have Murphy as an underdog here, but it was super close. I honestly wasn't sure which way they would go. The stats would kind of show that Calderwood was edging out the first round in terms of volume. But having said that, a lot of those like strikes were like kind of like low kicks and stuff, not even low kicks, were just like kind of like the distance kind of kicks that weren't really hurting Murphy. Murphy landed some good punches that hurt Calderwood. Second round, obviously Murphy won that round. It could have been a 10-8 round. Third round, I think was Calderwood, if I'm not mistaken. So it really came down to the first round, AJ. How'd you score it, man?
I scored a 29-28 Calderwood, but I could see the case both sides. I mean, like, yeah, you look statistically, it seemed like it was a domination. I think round 1 was
55 to 29. That's what it says on the stats. It didn't seem like that in real time, but if that's what it says, that's what it says,
Yeah, round 1 was like the toss-up round, and then we know who won rounds 2 and 3. Yeah, I like bet Calderwood live after round 1 at like plus 143, and she got up to like plus 500 at one point. And like I could have doubled down on it, but I wanted to stay disciplined. But yeah, look, kudos to Murphy. She gets a title shot. I know everybody's going to predict Valentina to beat her and everything, but like, look, I mean, kudos to her. She had a real career resurgence, kind of like Charles Oliveira that we talked about not too long ago. She had like a little bit of a rough start to her UFC career, came back after her tough stint, and now she's on a great winning streak. So yeah, this is her biggest win to date. And no matter how you scored the fight, she once again showed that she's a solid wrestler, solid grappler, and a capable striker herself. So this is her biggest win to date.
Yeah, 5-fight win streak for Lauren Murphy. Dana White said he's not committed to giving her a title shot, though. He was asked. He's like, I'm not committing to it. That was his words. And I actually wrote the article about it, and people were like, that's a clickbait headline. I'm like, that's literally what he said. Like, word for word, he said, I'm not committing to giving her a title shot right now. I'm not sure. That's what he said. He said, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not committing to it. So it doesn't sound like UFC's totally sold on her, AJ. I gotta be honest with you, man, as like a contender. But based on the body of work, I feel like she just kind of by default is next in line. The only thing I'll say is the only girl that really gave Valentina problems at 125 was Jennifer Maia, and I think that second round where she did control Valentina on the ground a little bit, the grappling. So that's the only way really that Murphy could win. But I think Valentina's even a better wrestler than her. So I mean, the betting line is going to be another boxing line. You're going to see Valentina probably, over minus 1,000, I would assume. Even though Murphy's tough, she doesn't get much respect. Usually an underdog in her fights. Let's get the other comment here. Jose said, crazy how it was March. Yeah, Riddell and Gillespie. I'd love to see him fight again, man. Matched up. Anders needs a sports psychologist. Maybe. That was a weird fight, man. Yeah. And by the way, Murphy's nickname Lucky's, it's very good because, she has 3 split decision wins in the UFC. So luck is on her side. Monster of Love, AJ, this was a guy that I was all in on this weekend. I absolutely loved him in this fight. And first 2 rounds, absolutely dominant. Third round, shit the bed, man. I don't know what happened. I guess got a little bit tired from all the takedowns he was landing, but yeah, I mean, that third round was a little sketchy, but he looked absolutely unbelievable. The first 2 rounds looked like kind of like a mini Khabib, chaining his wrestling together, just controlling the fight. 8 minutes, 55 seconds control time, 9 of 13 in takedowns landed, AJ. Just an unbelievable showing for 2 rounds. But again, the third round bothered me a bit. What did you think of his performance?
It was great. Yeah. This was the best I think he ever looked, to be honest with you, like in terms of just like he showed that he could land takedowns in volume. He's great with his control. Dawodu is a guy, I think his takedown defense is pretty good. So the fact that Evloev did this against Dawodu is very impressive. He's super well-rounded. I think he does have a championship ceiling, dare I say. He's not a perfect fighter, but he definitely excels in a lot of areas. The third round, it was interesting. Like, I think part of it was he got tired, but I don't think he was gassed. And I think the other, like, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but like I think part of it was just because he knew he was up.
Yeah, he coasted a bit. I agree, he coasted a little bit. Yeah, I agree with that.
And yeah, like that, like optically, like Dawodu just walking him down, landing, tagging him hard a couple times. I understand giving Dawodu the third round. So maybe it's just a mirage. Maybe it's just something that we just forget about 3 fights later, and he just continues to look spectacular. But I can't take anything away from him. He's looked truly spectacular.
Yep. So go to the early prelims here, and Pannie Kianzad wins a unanimous decision over Alexis Davis. Kind of weird scorecards: 30-27 times 2, and then 20-28. I don't agree with the 30-27. I thought Pannie won 29-28. It was an okay fight actually. They were kind of it was just basically standing and training. It was a pretty good fight. What do you think, AJ?
Yeah, like it was weird because I thought live Davis won, but if you would have told me like late Davis would have debatably won this fight in a fight that was exclusively stand up prior to playing out, I would have said like, what? Like I thought Davis, for her to win this fight, she had to get takedowns. And I'm looking at the numbers right now, and I know the numbers don't mean everything, but like she landed 132 significant strikes to Kianzad's 124. And I just thought
pretty close. That's competitive. Yeah. It was super 30-27 by these 2 judges is absolute batshit crazy. Don't you think, AJ?
Yeah, I don't get that. Yeah, when I heard 30-27, that actually made me more confident that Davis won. So I feel for everybody that had bets on Davis because like clearly the fight played out a lot closer than odds indicated. And but kudos to Pannie. I mean, she's a very capable striker, and this is her best win to date in my opinion. So congrats.
Yeah, the fight played exactly what I thought, with the boxing advantage. But Davis, like you said, looked better on the feet. I didn't bet on this fight or anything like that. I think I would have been really nervous for that decision, though. I will say that. This next one, though, I did bet on AJ. I told everyone. I told you guys last week, Claressa McKinney, my guy, AJ. Love it, man. I was so confident in this. I was like, man, I should make this like the biggest bet ever because I'm watching this fight. Like, I'm looking at these 2 guys, and I'm like, how does Frevola win this fight? Like, he doesn't even have the wrestling advantage, and he definitely doesn't have the striking advantage. And I mean, 7 seconds didn't really play out, but I think this guy would have won regardless, AJ, and just an unbelievable UFC debut. It doesn't get much better than that, man, and got a nice plus 200 underdog there, AJ. So I'm a big fan of this guy, man, but it looks like he blew out his knee or something on the celebration. Walking around with crutches after, that's very concerning, but yeah, unbelievable performance, man. Give me your thoughts on this kid, man.
Yeah, that was so impressive. I mean, that's like honestly the best result you could hope for, minus the knee injury. Just went out there and knocked him out in literally 7 seconds. I mean, like I totally hear you. Like I'm glad you like took the shot on him. It was one of those, like, I thought it was a dog or pass matchup going into it. I just didn't want to bet it because like I just didn't have a good convicted read on McKinney. But yeah, Frevola's a guy, like, I mean, I'm sure you looked into this. Like, he's been hurt plenty of times. So I guess in hindsight, it's not a huge surprise that McKinney knocked him out, a potent finisher, a good athlete. And I mean, this will really skyrocket him. I mean, we've seen so many guys where they come into the UFC, they get a quick finish, and then they get all this notoriety, Joaquin Buckley, Chaos Williams, it goes on and on. So yeah, this will really catapult McKinney's career in a big way. He's a guy that's, I'm assuming, on a 12-12 deal. So he actually didn't get a performance of the night bonus, unfortunately. But
yeah, that's
I do
crazy.
think
You like basically set a record, quickest, I think, debut knockout ever. I believe it in the lightweight division. And he didn't get the bonus. But yeah, it was an unbelievable performance. Now, the thing is, though, like, it was a great performance. But again, every matchup's different. So just because I liked him in this fight doesn't mean I'll like him in the next fight. I know that this guy has some problems with his cardio. Obviously, we saw that before. So again, I like a better 155 though, AJ. Again, he fought Sean Woodson at 145. Seemed like that weight cut killed this kid. At 155, man, fast, explosive. That 1-2 was beautiful. That's the thing about MMA. Sometimes you could be basic, man. A 1-2 combination, that's all you needed, AJ. You knocked the guy out in 7 seconds. So unbelievable. And then, you know what I'll say, though, for this fight, the one fight that really made me confident was watching back that Luis Pena fight. And Luis Pena dropped and hurt this guy. And I was like, man, Luis Pena doesn't really even have power. Like, Polo Reyes, a guy who's not that good, knocked him out. I'm like, you know what? Let's take a shot with McKinney. And it was a good pick, but I didn't have enough of the underdogs. I thought when he won, AJ, I'm like, I have a shot tonight on DraftKings, but then Moreno wins and Paul Craig wins, and I'm like, okay, I didn't have those guys, so it shows you how hard it is to win. Some guy won 200,000 solo on the weekend, AJ. I don't know if you saw that, man. Pretty unbelievable, man. The winning team was Brandon Moreno, Brad Riddell, Leon Edwards, Terrence McKinney, Movsar Evlov, and I'm forgetting someone. Paul Craig. I think that's a 6, right? So I believe that's it. Yeah, that's a 6. So he left like 2,000 something of salary on the table, which I think I said that last week. I was like, you're gonna have to leave salary on the table to win it all, but BJ, you're basically picking 4 or 5 underdogs. You know what I mean? Like, that's hard to do. So bravo. Movsar Evlov always has this weird moment in fights. I like this guy, man. I want to see him fight a top 10 guy now. People were asking who I want to see him fight. Someone said Josh Emmett. That'd be a good fight, a good test for him. Emmett's good wrestler, good defensive wrestler with huge knockout power. So what do you think of that one?
Yeah, that would be a really tough matchup for Evlov. Not one that I would say he can't pass, but that's definitely like his toughest matchup.
The winner, I think, would be like right up there for a title shot potentially. Daniel said he thought Penny won. Yeah, it was close for sure. He says the fast KO looks even funnier. See Favola flex his shoulders. Favola was just a little bit too overconfident, man, against this guy, and you can't let your guard down for even 1 second. It happens though. I mean, this guy's good. I hope they give Favola one more fight. He took the fight on super short notice. People always talk about the short notice for the guy coming in on short notice, AJ. But what about the guy who lost his opponent, gets a brand new opponent? Like, I thought I loved him against Frank Camacho. That's the crazy thing. A few days ago, AJ, I was like, man, he's going to be like on all my DraftKings teams. He's going to out wrestle Frank Camacho, and then he goes and gets finished. Maybe they'll rebook that fight. 3 fights left here, guys. Steven Peterson pretty much takes Chase Hooper to school here. Chase, super tough kid, AJ. But Steven Peterson proved to be better wrestler, better striker. You think that's it for Chase Hooper in the UFC? You think they give him another chance, or you think they're going to cut him?
I think they give him one more chance. People seem to really like him, and
they'll
like. There were so many people that were like telling me they were like talking about like how they like love Hooper in general and in the matchup and whatever. I'm like, that's cool, but like, I mean, I see what you're saying. Like, he excels on the ground, but he's just not a physical wrestler, and so he's just pretty limited on what he could do. So like, while I'm rooting for him and I'm wishing him all the best, I just think he needs to make significant improvements if he wants a long stint with the UFC. But kudos to Peterson. He circumstances were against him here, layoff,
missed weight too,
and really dominated from bell to bell. So yeah.
I was surprised he missed weight because he used to fight at 135. So for him to miss weight at 145, I mean, that's a little confusing, but whatever. Here's the thing about Chase, right? Usually you sign a 4-fight contract, and that's his 4th fight, 2-2. You're right. The fans love him. When I was at his first fight against Daniel Tamer at Vegas, and the fans went crazy for this guy. And it was an early prelim, and they were cheering this guy like crazy. So there's definitely a fan base for Chase Hooper, but I don't know, man. I think he needs more seasoning. I think it's not a bad thing if he gets cut right now and goes to work in a smaller promotion. I think to work on his overall game. Also, it just feels like he's not a man yet. Like, you look at him, he still looks kind of like a kid. Like, he hasn't grown into his frame yet. You know what I mean, AJ? Like, but I think he really needs a significant change with his strength and conditioning, because there's no reason this guy, who's such a talented grappler, should be controlled in his back. And I know he's willing to be there, but Steven Peterson was the stronger physical guy in this fight too. So I would like for this guy to work on that. 2 other fights, AJ, quickly. Fair and Luigi Vendramini. You know what, guys? This was such a close fight. Obviously, ZM won the first 2 rounds. I honestly did think it was a 10-8 round, though, in the 3rd round. Vendramini dominated the round. He hurt him badly. He was going for the finish. I love seeing him do that. I love seeing him go for it. It was close. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong if you score at 10-9, but I think it was 10-8. What do you think?
I actually scored a 10-9 for Vendramini in the 3rd round. He hurt him. It wasn't a true dominant round. Like, I don't think it was as dominant enough to warrant like a 10-8. Like, he rocked him, he took him down, he controlled him for a bit, but he didn't really do a whole lot beyond that. So yeah, like, I think we could agree, like, Vendramini, like, regardless, like 10-8 round, like, he shouldn't have won the fight because ZM clearly won the first 2. But I think the biggest takeaway is, well, there's 2. I think ZM, despite getting the rep as like a poor defensive wrestler and grappler, he's getting better. But but we still seen if you actually do get him down, he could definitely be controlled on his back for a bit. So he's definitely a guy. Yeah, that's got issues.
Like Malarkey did in his fight. I feel like this guy's kind of lucky right now. He's 2-1, but I'm honestly not sure he should. I think he should be 0-2-1. That's what I think his record should be. So I'm not sold on this guy. I mean, definitely he's got a good jab and technical striking, but yeah, Vendramin, if he just pulled the trigger sooner, he would have won the fight. Last fight here, AJ, give me your thoughts on this one, because I did have Collier. I know you did too. Now, it was close, no doubt about it. But here's the thing. Again, the judges, the first criteria is effective striking, effective grappling, right? There was no grappling really in this fight. So it all came down to the striking. No one really dropped each other. No one got super seriously hurt. So I think it comes down to volume. And you look at the stats, and Jay Collier won every round of the stats. And I thought he won the fight, AJ. I thought it was close, but I did think he edged it out. Judges gave it to Felipe. What do you think?
Yeah, it came down to round 3. Thought round 1 was clear Collier. Round 2 was clear Felipe. And I thought Collier closed the fight pretty strong. I scored it for him, but I don't think it was like an egregious.
No, it wasn't a robbery by any means. I just think it was the wrong decision. That's all. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it was a robbery. It was a close fight. But again, you do look at the stats. He outstruck him every round, according to the stats. The thing that bothers me is like Joe Rogan was just going off about the body language. Like, that's not, there's nowhere in the rule book that says a guy who has bad body language is losing the fight. Literally, it doesn't say that anywhere. I can understand if you're a judge, you're watching it subconsciously, you can think the guy's losing because of that. But there's nowhere in there. And they really need to stop spreading that kind of misinformation on the broadcast. You know what I mean, AJ? Like, if someone who's kind of watching UFC for the first time sees that, maybe they think that's why the fight was being won. I guess, in my mind, the judges probably thought the striking was tied, so it came down to the second criteria, which is aggressiveness, and they thought because Felipe was advancing, he won the fight. That's what I think it came down to. They thought the striking was tied. I didn't, though. I thought Collier was the more effective striker. So thought it was a bad decision, but again, it was close. But this freaking Chris Lee, I hate whenever this judge, AJ, anytime I got a fight that goes to the cards with this guy, I'm like, I lost. I ripped the ticket up before the third judge is red. Anyways, any other takeaways from UFC 263 before we move on to Bellator quickly?
No, let's move on to Belly.
Let's do it. Okay, so I'm pretty sure you had a pretty good night at the window, AJ, if I'm not mistaken. I think you had Amosov and Jackson. Were those your two guys, or you had someone else?
Correctamundo, 2-0.
There you go.
Those two, yep.
Oh, I mean, you were right about. We did the podcast last week. You were with me, and I said I leaned towards Lima. It was just a terrible pick. Amosov, just absolutely dominated the wrestling. Now I'm wondering, it looks like he can really control these fights. The Storley guy was the only fight that gave him problems. So it looks like to me, AJ, the only guy that's really going to beat him is like a really dominant wrestler who's even better than him at wrestling. And I don't know who that is in Bellator, because I feel like he could take these strikers another element, man. Like Lima, he didn't do any. To me, he showed signs of a long layoff in this fight. He hadn't fought in almost a year. He just couldn't get it going. Poor performance by Lima, but Amosov dominant 50-45. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's the best fighter in this division. I thought Lima was the favorite because he's the champ, and we typically see the champs as favorites. Yeah. But that's just an edge I like to take advantage of in betting. I remember Max betting Usman as an underdog against Woodley and thinking it was such a terrible style matchup.
I had that one too. Yep, that
nice.
Was a great. Yeah.
So that's an edge because people, it's just hard for the public to see the champ lose because he's the champ. He's got the gold around his waist, and it's tough to imagine a guy dethroning him. And I acknowledged in my breakdown, Lima, he does have good takedown defense. You're not going to take anything away from him in terms of that, but we saw Rory take him down in the first fight. We saw Mousasi take him down and control him in the clinch. And much respect to those guys, but Amosov's just a stud sambo specialist. It gave me confidence seeing those guys take him down and control him in the clinch that Amosov could do the same. I also think that Amosov's actually got some underrated striking. He moves well. He's trained at Tiger Muay Thai in the past. He's got good volume. So, yeah, I mean, the thing that I want to note going forward is I think people might be writing Lima off because he's coming off 2 losses. And so it might create an interesting betting opportunity if he, say, gets matched up with MVP again in a rematch where he might see a tighter line than he otherwise would. So maybe the motivation of Lima is plateaued a bit, but I still think that's more of a narrative than anything. I still think he's really good. I just think that Amosov was the toughest matchup for him in the division.
Yeah, Amosov's a beast, and he's super young, right? He's 25, 26, so he's unbelievable, man. I'm sorry, 27. 6 years younger in the fight, and 26-0 now in his career, so unbelievable fighter, man. Love the guy. AJ, go check your Twitter because they just tagged you in a post. You're going to like it. It's actually something I wrote. I didn't know if they were going to post it, but now they have. So read that. You see it?
Yeah, let's go, baby.
Read it. What does it say?
Dana White hints at hashtag Chicago for future hashtag UFC event. Nice.
Yeah. Let's read the quote here. So, yeah, I know AJ is an Illinois guy. So he says, I love coming to Chicago as soon as Chicago opens up. Is it 100% opened up yet in 15 days? I guess is that true, AJ? It's opening up. You guys are opening up pretty soon, or that's what someone was saying to him. You don't know?
I was downtown Saturday. We're all
okay. Well, there you go. Right. So I guess that's what's happening. Well, that seems to be the story around the country. If the places open up, I'm not saying they are, but if they're not, but it's not what I'm looking for exactly yet. We will start going to these cities, and I love the city of Chicago, the food. So yes, we'll consider going there. So good news for you guys. Let me get these comments from you guys before I forget to let them. Daniel said he thought Collier won. It's annoying, especially watching Felipe celebrate like he won the Olympics. Yeah, you know what? Like, it's annoying, but like whatever. He's happy. I mean, he's a happy-go-lucky guy. I will say this though, he did show up in better physical shape for this fight. He looked better than his last couple fights, so that was something to keep in mind. He's a young guy, 26. But I'm with you, Jose. I really think he's 1-3 too, because I went back and checked, and I thought he lost to Tafa. I scored it against him, and I thought he lost this fight. So I think he's 1-3 with his only win being the Castro. He did go to a majority decision with Spivak, which was a close fight, but I'm just not sold on this guy, AJ. I'll tell you that right now. Now, the other bet AJ had, Jason Jackson. I thought this was going to be a much more competitive fight. I mean, I love Jason Jackson, guys. I've always picked him on the show. I still picked him in this fight, obviously, but I thought Daly had a chance too, but Jackson just, again, dominant wrestling. So here's the question. Is that a good enough performance to get the title shot against Amosov, or do you think they're going to give it to Michael Page instead? Because they did have Michael Page in the broadcast. Seems like they were kind of promoting him a little bit. What do you think?
I think you could do like three different things here. So I think you could have Amosov maybe wait a little bit, and then you could have either Jackson versus MVP, Jackson versus Larkin, or MVP versus Larkin. And then whichever matchup gets made of those three, you could have that fighter fight Amosov. I don't mind MVP fighting Amosov. I think Amosov would just destroy him. I think Amosov beats all three of them, but at least I think with those three interchangeable matchups, I think you have some really interesting stylistic clashes. And so that would be my hope for making it happen, because when you look at Jackson and MVP, they both beat Daly. They're both on momentum, and I know you like when MVP gets a step up. That would be a step up for him fighting Jackson, and I think it makes sense for all three guys in theory.
Yeah, I'm down for any of those fights. They have a good welterweight division, man. There's no doubt about it. There's some good fighters in that division. Like these guys are in UFC. They'll be potentially top 15 guys. Jose says for a fun fight, yeah, Felipe called out Arlovsky. I'm fine with that. Rothwell's a good fight. I think he probably beats Rothwell. I think he might lose to Arlovsky. Arlovsky's still fast for a guy his age. Pavlo says MVP wants the rematch of Lima. Yeah, I would watch that fight, Pavlo. I would love to see that fight, man. Jackson wants to fight Jackson. Yeah, I'm fine with that too. I don't know, because they did have, like I said, MVP. They're promoting him. He was doing the commentary. I'm fine with either of those fights. Like you said, like they can mix and match those guys, and there's good fights. So can sure hit a big parlay. Congrats, man. Good job. We'll go quickly through the other fights, but I want to talk about this guy first. Aaron Pico looked amazing against Aiden Lee. Just unbelievable, man, in this fight. What do you think of this performance? I think it was actually the best overall performance of his career. What do you think?
Yeah, he looked great. I mean, I put out a question on Twitter, like, how many wrestler or fighters do you know could land eight plus takedowns in a fight and have one hitter quitter type power? One answer came back, Usman. I think that's a fair one. But Pico, dude, when his durability holds up, he is a monster to deal with. Now he's working on a submission game. Like, I mean, for the opposition to beat this guy, you got to hurt him. Otherwise, I just think he's got too much tools to overwhelm the opposition. And people will write him off because of those two losses, or they did at the time. But I mean, this guy's got championship level potential. Assuming that chin holds up, he's debatably the most skilled fighter in this division, dare I say. I think he is the most skilled fighter in this division. Man, he's unbelievable, guys. He really is. And, I've always had questions because of the durability. I still think, a guy with really good defensive grappling and power can chin check him. But, I mean, this guy's improved, and he's unbelievable. So I'm a big fan of him. Mark Levinger defeats DeMarcus Jackson. DeMarcus Jackson, man, I only picked him because he's from – not like I had interest in this fight, really. But, he's a Sanford guy. But he's like the Sanford guy that keeps losing, AJ. So I guess they need someone in the camp not to win, right? You can't have every guy in the camp winning. We'll get the comment here quickly. Pavlo says they had MVP there because they were thinking Lima would win.
So their scenario, yeah, they probably were. You're right. Lima MVP too, but you can still do it for the not for the belt, like you said. Aaron Pico came to my dojo for personal training. Yeah, Aaron Pico, man. I mean, this guy, he's training at Jackson Wink now. He was at AKO this year, so it's a good thing. Chris is asking, in regards to the Felipe decision, do you see the trend in judging lean towards harder, powerful striking or volume? I don't even feel like he punched that much harder. I feel like it was super close. I do feel like those body punches were something that hurt Collier. I think it was just close. It came down really to one round, right? Like that's all it came down to. That's all it came down to. I don't think this fight really told us anything other than the judges probably felt the striking was the same, so they went to the second criteria, which is aggressiveness. And then if that's tied, they would go to octagon control. People get that confused sometimes, AJ. They think that you mix them all together, like the overall winner of those things, but it's not like that at all. Mm-hmm. Pavlo says 135 is the best division. He doesn't know if Pico is the most talented at 145. Yeah, man, McKee's good for sure. Okay, let's go through these ones quickly because I want to talk PFL. Kyle Crutchburger defeats Levin. Trokeli. Justin Gonzalez defeats Tyrone Clackson. Close fight, AJ, split decision. Bobby King was a guy I was telling you, man, watch out for this guy. Because he was an underdog. I was like, he's coming off a win over Steven Seiler. That's a good win. And he beats Nick Newell. And again, Nick Newell, I like the guy, AJ. Just, again, he's limited. He has a limited ceiling, guys. Like, he really does, you know. He's a decent fighter, but I think he's never going to get to that next level. And, you know, he's lost 2 straight fights by split decision in Bellator. They do like him, though. He'll get another fight. But, you know, this Bobby King guy is not like a big name or anything, but he's got a couple of good wins in a row now, Nick Newell and Steven Seiler. So, maybe they'll give him someone decently named at 155. The Lucas Brennan guy, yeah, he did what we expect against Matt Sawicki. That fight, like I said, that fight shouldn't have really been booked. Marina Mock, we both called her as an underdog, AJ. Martinez, so she looked good. And then Polizzi, a guy that you told me was like you were really high on, gets a submission. Any thoughts on these prelims?
I mean, no, not a whole lot. Yeah, King looked good. Good prediction by you. I was on the Newell side there. Polizzi, I actually missed the fight, but I saw that he won in dominant fashion. And Marina, yeah, won a clear decision there. So, yeah, and then Brennan, the massive minus 1,000 favorite or whatever, looked minus 1,000. So, yeah. If you had him on your parlay, I'm sure you were happy.
Yeah, like I said, the under in those kind of situations, again, like, or, you know, inside the distance. All right, PFL, talk about that quickly, AJ. So, we did break down the card last week too, and let's talk about Claressa Shields' debut. I want to get your thoughts on this, your honest thoughts. Okay, give me your honest thoughts, and then last question from Daniel, and then I'll talk about PFL. He's talking about Bellator here. I caved to peer pressure and put Nick Army. You put money on Nick Newell. Yeah, well, don't get peer pressured into betting anyone, man. Just do whatever you feel like is the right call. You know what I mean? Don't get peer pressured into it. Trust me, it's happened to me before in my past, and it's not like that anymore. So, gotta make your own call, man. Let's talk about PFL, AJ. Claressa Shields, Brittany Elkin. So give me your honest thoughts on the fight because I've seen a lot of different opinions about this fight. Here's my honest thoughts, and I'm going to get AJ. So my honest thoughts are, you know, she did what we all thought she would do and won the fight, but she showed a lot of holes in her game in this fight, man. Like her takedown defense was almost non-existent. Her concepts on the ground were, you know, basically trying to survive. And, you know, she did survive. And we saw that she's an incredible athlete, which we knew. And I feel like just being the better athlete won her this fight, being in better shape won her this fight. She was obviously the better conditioned athlete. But she, I thought, lost 2 10-8 rounds in this fight. So you can't say it was a good performance. It was a good comeback. But she was well on her way to losing this fight. Even if she had won 10-8 in the third round, I don't even think she would have won the fight on the card. She would have been down still. So she did show obviously huge ground and pound, huge punching power. I love to see that. So we know she's got some good ground and pound. But AJ, I wasn't too impressed, man. I know it's her first fight, guys, but I'm just saying, like, you can't kid yourself into thinking this was an incredible performance, in my opinion. Like, it was a good comeback, but a performance and a decent MMA debut. No, it was a successful MMA debut, a good comeback. Overall, a performance where I still have a lot of question marks about her. So give me your thoughts, AJ, your honest thoughts.
Yeah, it just goes to show. I'm sure she worked really, really hard, and she's obviously a great high-level athlete. She's got the mindset and everything. If you just are not that experienced with training MMA, you could only learn so much in such a short amount of time. And even working at a camp like Jackson Wink, I mean, you just need to get more rounds in there to really round out your game as a mixed martial artist. Like you said, the takedown defense, the ability to scramble off her back. I mean, everything that you would expect out of a high-level athlete was present, you know, especially being a boxer, you know, fast hands, power, good technique, a lot of heart did she show there, a lot. But in terms of just her technique in the grappling and wrestling, that's something that I would like to see her take some time away. And before she gets back in there, like take a long layoff and like actually get better. Like I understand like there's risk of rust in there, but like I also think it would be a benefit for her because she's only 26. She's young. So it's not like, you know, she's her best years are still in front of her. Right. So I would like to see that get rounded out. Cause like you said, she was losing the fight clear up until the third round there. And kudos to her for pulling off the upset, but it's one of those fights. I can't look at the destination and say, oh, but she won the fight. I gotta look at the whole journey, man. I know you look at the same thing. You can't just ignore these things that were such an issue for her in the early going. And, you know, should she get matched up with another grappler, it could be an issue.
I agree. Like she's calling out Harrison right now. Are you kidding me? Like she's not ready for that fight at all. She obviously has a puncher's chance, but you know what's crazy? The line for the Amanda Nunes fight actually opened 2 years ago because she was at UFC 245. Dana White was talking about signing her to fight Nunes. It was minus 700 plus 450. I'm pretty sure she's minus 7,000 now after seeing this fight. I mean, Amanda would take her down and beat her up. No doubt about it. So, yeah, I mean, this is not who Amanda was. This is Brittany Elkin, and she struggled with her, but she still got the win. So, again, showed a lot of heart. I'm not saying she's a bad fighter. I think she's a good prospect. She's probably one of the best prospects we've ever seen, right? But, you know, all I'm saying is proceed with caution, man. And, you know, it's the same thing with that Aaron Pico guy. He's amazing now, right? But AJ, he lost his first fight to Zach Freeman. You know, he was upset, and he lost a couple other fights. So you got to take it slow with these prospects sometimes. And Clarissa, unlike Aaron, who had a wrestling background, she has no wrestling background. She's learned some concepts quickly, AJ, but I feel like she still has a lot of holes in her game on the ground, guys. So that's my thoughts. I just think if Elkin was more conditioned, and also Elkin, she was all about position in this fight. She didn't even go for any submissions. She didn't want to go for a submission and probably end up on her back or something. Daniel says, I didn't bet PFL main event. Clyde didn't. Would have been frustrated either way. Betting Shields a stab in the dark, betting Elkins a letdown. Yeah, she took her foot off the gas. She was going to win the fight. Shields isn't a big hunter and boxer, and be careful relying on her one-hitter quitter. That's a good point. Yeah, but she's got good technique, obviously, and just hand speed. And you could see the power on the ground, though, man. Those were heavy shots, guys. Those were some big punches. Now let's go through a couple of the other fights here, AJ. Clay Collard defeats Jolton Luderbach. Split decision, though. What do you think? Who do you think won?
I think it's fair to give it to Collard. He did more damage over the course of the fight, but it was another case where he was overvalued because he beat Pettis, and he still got, like, the thing with Collard is he still got his issues. Like, so it shouldn't have been a huge surprise to see him get taken down, put on his back, controlled for a bit. That's been an issue with him for a long time, but kudos for him getting the win. He's putting himself in a position in this tournament, got some points on the board. And yeah, another win couldn't hurt, split decision or not.
Yeah, for sure. Bubba Jenkins defeats Bobby Moffitt. Yeah, any thoughts on that fight?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Like, Bubba was dominating him those first 2 rounds, and then round 3 got pretty sketchy there. He was getting teed off on a bit, and yeah, Moffitt was definitely coming on strong there. But kudos to Jenkins. It was, I know you were a little skeptical about him in the past about because you've been following him for so long. You've seen him lose in some ways that weren't the most impressive. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, he pretty much dominated the fight because he was a better wrestler and athlete. But cardio and the striking defense is going to be a concern going forward.
No, for sure. And then Brendan Lofton and Tyler Diamond. I mean, if you didn't see this fight, go back and watch it, guys. This fight was unbelievable. Sick fight. Brendan Lofton wins a majority decision, AJ. Now, me and AJ both were on the side of it was a dogger pass situation, but the scorecard, the 28-28 scorecard is an all-time bad scorecard. There's no way you could call this fight a draw. It was obviously Brendan Lofton's fight. 29-27 would probably be a good scorecard, I think. Man, I mean, it was a great fight. Lofton looked unbelievable, and Tyler Diamond just a diamond chin, I think we can say. So, thoughts on this fight, man?
Yeah, it was a pretty bad beating. I mean, you're right. Like, if you're going to go back and watch one fight from this card, it's this fight. Everybody was inspired by Diamond's heart. He got hurt so many times, though. It was just like, I was wrong. I thought it was the line was close. The line should have been closer than it was. But honestly, looking back on it, I think there was even value on Laughlin at like minus 300 or whatever he was at. I mean, the scorecards don't do it justice as to how one-sided it was. Laughlin almost finished multiple times. I think some referees, if they were in that same spot, would have stopped it. Couple points there. Diamond, I mean, I think he's actually really talented. It's just there's more than one fight where he's getting beaten up. and taking a lot of damage. We saw that on the Ultimate Fighter against Jay Cuccinello. We saw him get rocked by Joe the fight before this. So that's going to be a concern that I have for him going forward, even though I do think he's a talented prospect. But kudos to Loughlin, another guy that, despite not being in the UFC and despite winning on the Contender Series, high-level guy, could be in MMA's top promotion, I think. So, yeah, he's a guy to look out for.
Yeah, he should be in the UFC, but that's okay. He might win $1 million. It's going to be all worth it, right? Nathan Schulte defeats Alex Martinez. Olivier Aubin-Mercier defeats Marcin Held. Loic Radzimov defeats Ahmed Aliev. Shane Moraes defeats Jesse Stern. And Chris Wade defeats Armin Ospinov. That's a guy we both liked as an underdog in that fight. Any thoughts on those early prelims, AJ, as we wrap up PFL?
I'm laughing at the Held Aubin-Mercier result because I picked Held because I thought his issues weren't going to cost him in this fight, and then Mercier proceeds to rock him and then just get him tired, and just every issue that Held had just shows up in this fight in the past. It seemed like they were behind him, and it seemed like Mercier would be the guy to do it, but of course Mercier goes out there, wins 30-27. But anyway, that's my final thoughts on the prelims. But it was a good card from top to bottom.
Fair enough, and we'll talk about those playoffs at some other point. But I think that's it, though, guys. Basically at the end of the hour, anyways. Any last second questions we'll take here quickly. But AJ, man, tell me what else you got going on, AJ. I know you're working for a couple websites right now. Plug your stuff, man.
Yeah, working on dailyfanmma.com. Check us out. We actually got an Instagram now, so check out Daily Fan MMA. Doing some write-ups for this upcoming event. No Bellator this week, guys, but UFC, PFL this week. Exciting times. You can follow me on Twitter at AJ Schullo. Adam, awesome doing this with you as always, and best of luck to everybody this week here on Monday.
Yeah, thanks, AJ, man. And yeah, guys, appreciate AJ coming on. Marcel's going to be back tomorrow. So tomorrow, we're going to shift the podcast back to 7 p.m. Eastern time. Just we have to push it back tomorrow. It's not something we want to do on a regular basis. Marcel really wants to watch soccer. So I told Marcel, okay, you've moved stuff around for me in the past. I'll move it around for you. So we're going to move to 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. But in the meantime, follow me on Twitter at MMADamMartin. All the news at bjpen.com, myMMAnews.com. MMAOddsBreaker.com. I'll put the UFC odds up. PFL odds are going to drop hopefully soon. But I just went through the UFC odds today, AJ, breaking down the fights for tomorrow. I've already did the tape study on a couple guys. So there's a couple guys that are I'm not too familiar with on the card. But, I mean, most guys on the card obviously are UFC veterans. It's going to be a good card, though, guys, I think. Very violent one. Don't sleep on this one. I heard a lot of people talking crap about this card, but I don't think it's that bad. I think there's some good fights on it. So, AJ, if you'd like to come on tomorrow with us, AJ, you're welcome to at 7 p.m. Eastern. I have no idea if you're around, but I'll throw the invitation out to you as well, man, because you did help us out today. So, open invite for you as well to come on tomorrow. Anyways, guys, I'll talk to you soon. But yeah, at 7 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. Have a good one, guys. And I want to wish my dad a happy birthday. It's his birthday today, so wish him a happy birthday. All right, guys, we'll get